So this last Sunday at the high school gathering, we ended up, it was the tail end of fall break. I kind of felt the moment and felt like it didn't feel the right time to start a new series. So we're supposed to start this series on family matters. We were supposed to start this new series on family matters like last Sunday, but then didn't, and you can find that video up on the channel, but I didn't want us to get behind, so I thought in a brief synopsis I'll kind of cover what we were supposed to talk about in week 1 of Family Matters. So let me start by asking you a question. What do you think of when you think of the word family? I certainly don't think of ping pong because we didn't have that growing up. I wish I did. But I don't. So what do you think of when you think of the word family? When I think of my family, I think of like Star Wars, because we were all Star Wars fans, or I thought of Branson, Missouri vacations, right? Silver Dollar City. You probably don't know what that is, but it was awesome. And then we also thought of like, Thanksmas, because my family every other year we would celebrate something called Thanksmas. We would all gather around for Christmas and Thanksgiving at Thanksgiving. And so Thanksgiving was Thursday, Christmas was Friday, Thanksmas. We're gonna do that this year, so I'm gonna get to travel Joplin and see family again. Pretty pumped about that. But there's also a lot of other words that I think of when I think of family. I think of, sometimes annoyed, because let's be honest, families can sometimes annoy us. Sometimes I think of frustrated. I'm just straight up angry at family. Maybe you're competitive and your siblings don't really get along with you because of the amount of competition that you face towards each other. And so it's just frustrating. Or maybe you just think of chaos, because no matter how well you may like each other or get along most of the time, everybody has crazy schedules. So everybody's just like off doing their own thing, and it's a million miles an hour, and so I'm really not good at ping pong. But it just feels like there's never enough time to actually get to know each other or to actually have real conversations, because it's just chaos. So I don't know what it is when you think of family, but we all think of something. And all of us, our families are a little bit, unique in that. No two families are the same. While your family may wrestle with one thing, other people's families wrestle with different things. And so your families also may not look the same in the sense that, like, some of you live at home with both mom and dad who've been happily married ever since, before your time, right? Some of you live with grandparents or aunts and uncles, or you've been adopted, or you have a blended family because your parents have gotten remarried. And so everybody's family not only looks unique, but is unique in how it functions, and no two family is the same. But there's also this reality that while no two family is the same, every family does have one thing in common, and that it is complicated. I don't care who you are and what family you come from, every family has its own set of complications that we don't always know how to handle. One of the reasons families are always so complicated is because no two person is the same. Families are all made up of imperfect people that all have their own personalities, and that all mixes together in different ways depending on the family. And each of us naturally kind of fall into a particular role when it comes to the family. Some of you take on the role of the moderator, where you just kind of want to maintain the peace and keep everybody happy in the family. Some of you, however, are the avoider, and so maybe you're the one that you kind of isolate yourself into your room or your safe place, and you try not to get involved in whatever else is going on. Or maybe you're like I was, and you take on the role of the instigator in your family, and whenever something is going wrong, you insert yourself into the mix and you try to set the record straight, and you let people know where they're out of line and what they're supposed to be doing to make things better. Or maybe you're looked at as the smart one. That's the role that you fall into. You're the smart one. You're the brains of the family. Maybe you're the rule follower and you don't break any rules. You'll do anything to have a good time except break any rules ever. And some of you are just the comedian. You just like to have a good time and make light of everything. No matter which one you fall into, we all fall into some kind of these roles, and that's not an exhaustive list. Some of you, maybe you're thinking of something else entirely and you fall into that. But we all fall into some kind of role. And here's the reality is no matter what role we tend to fall in our families, sometimes whatever role we're in, it doesn't always feel like faith and family mix. Maybe it's because you're confused on how to actually live out a loving faith in your family when everybody seems so unloving. Maybe you're the only Christian in your family, and so you're the instigator when it comes to faith, and you don't want to step on anybody's toes because you don't want to make Jesus unattractive to people who don't follow him yet. And so sometimes you don't know, or sometimes your parents ask you to do things or set rules for you that you don't always agree with. And so how do you introduce your faith into that mix? Or maybe you grow up in a Christian family and your family does do the church thing pretty often, or it's a part of your identity as a family is that you're Christians, but it seems like your family is no different from the non-Christian families that you know from school and other friends that you have. And so there's a standard that seems to be set by going to church and being a Christian, but somehow that standard doesn't seem to be balanced at home. And so that causes confusion for you in your faith, and it doesn't seem like faith and family mix. It seems like they're compartmentalized into different things. Or maybe you're not sure you buy into this at all, but your family sure does, and maybe church is the punishment for you when you do something wrong, and so they make you come and try to set you straight that way. And so you're just really not sure, but you kind of play along because it's what your family does. So regardless of whatever position you find yourself in, or whatever role you find yourself in within the family, it seems like faith and family are totally separate, like they don't really mix. And that's a tension that a lot of us feel. And so that's really what this series is meant to cover, to address and kind of face that tension head on and figure out how do we live out our faith in our families regardless of what our families look like. So in order to talk about this, I kind of want us to look into the Gospel of John. And we're going to go to chapter 13. So I'll put this on the screen for you, but basically, to kind of set the scene for you, Jesus was having his Last Supper with his disciples. And as they're coming together in the upper room, and this is a place that they'd probably met at many times before. It was a familiar home, it was a familiar meeting place to them. And the disciples, they don't know that this is the Last Supper. Jesus does, because he's Jesus, but the disciples have no idea that this is going to be anything different than what they've typically done. And Jesus gets in there, and first thing that's weird is he starts washing their feet, which is only the job for the lowest of the low, but Jesus decides to do it, and the disciples don't know how to take it. It's awkward, and Peter objects at first, but Jesus washes their feet, and then he begins talking to them, and the disciples start like what is he talking? He's acting like this is like a last goodbye or something. What's the deal here, right? They can tell probably something's off, but they have no idea what's about to happen. And Jesus is in this room with the people that he's been closest to. They're probably like his family in a lot of ways, because he spent more time with them than anybody in the last 3.5 years. Their whole lives have been invested together. Maybe you feel that way about certain people. They're not your biological family, but they are, for lack of a better term, family to you. And this is how Jesus was with his disciples. And he's in this room washing their feet, serving these people. And he knows that two of the people in that room are one of them is going to deny him and pretend like he never knew him, and one of them is going to straight up just betray him and turn him into the authorities to become arrested, which instigates this entire thing that is the death and the crucifixion of Jesus. So he's in this room with all these people that he's closest to, knowing that they're all going to abandon him, and some of them specifically are going to flat out reject him in the coming days. And he washes their feet. And then he says this to them. He says, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." He's going, remember what I did just a little bit ago, and I broke the social norms, and I got down on my hands and knees and I served you. I placed your needs above my own, and I took the very nature of a servant in order to show love and kindness to you. That's how I want you to treat other people. It wasn't my job to take care of you in that way, but I chose to take that position, to take that role. in order to meet you where you're at, in order to show love to you. He goes, how I did that for you, that's how I want you to show love and to treat the people around you. And by this, by your devotion to one another, through the way you love one another, even in unexpected ways, this is how people will know that you're my disciples. In other words, how will people know that you're a follower of Jesus? What will show people closest to you that you follow God? What will the people around you see that tells them about your faith? When you're angry at somebody and when somebody does something wrong to you, how do you respond? It's really honestly kind of simple. It's love. And that's obviously not the easiest thing to do by any means. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, especially when it comes to our family. It's difficult living under the same roof with a bunch of people that you have different personalities, different roles you kind of fall into, and you're supposed to just treat each other with love all the time. When somebody does something wrong to you and you turn the other cheek, when somebody lashes out at you but you respond in kindness, when somebody calls out you, and rightfully so because you were wrong about something, and you humbly fess up to it rather than try to defend yourself and you try to make amends, that shows love in a way that most people don't do. So how will people know your faith and know your love, and how will your faith make a difference in your family? How does it mix into your family? It's by loving. It's not by knowing all the right things, because we're constantly learning and growing. It's not by checking off a list of all the things we're supposed to do. That's called cultural Christianity, where we just do the things we're supposed to do out of a sense of obligation or tradition, but has no heartfelt meaning. Jesus is saying, no, actually, it's way more simple than that and infinitely harder. It's to simply love one another. It's to put the needs of others, especially in your family, above yourself. And here's the reality. Showing love in difficulty changes you. It makes you more like Christ. It's not by just doing all the things you're supposed to do. Well, that adds to it a little bit. It's in the hard moments when you choose love. That's what changes you, and that's what makes you more like Jesus. And you have more opportunity than ever to do that with the people in your family. In fact, if you want to be a good husband or a good wife someday, if you want to be a good father or a good mother, a good person who runs the home in your family, then practice now with how you treat your current family. Because I promise you, when you have your own family, it's not going to be rainbows and butterflies the way you imagine it to be, because you're going to have the same issues with everybody having a different personality, everybody having like kind of their own roles they fall into, and their own complicated opinions. And you're going to have to choose love in that scenario just like you are in your current family. So practicing now. In fact, if you want to know the measure of a good husband or a good wife, a good future spouse someday in your dating life, look to how they treat their family. And that will be a pretty good indication for you, the way that they're going to treat the ones that they marry someday. If you want your faith to help your family, show them as much love as you can. And when it comes to your faith in your family, love matters most. So that's basically what week 1 was going to be all about this past week before we changed the plan. So we will start with week 2 of Family Matters for High School this Sunday. I hope you can make it. We're going to have a really fun game because, it's almost Halloween. So we're going to have some fun with that. And I hope you invite some friends. It's going to be worth it. And I hope that you show up and that you are excited and ready to just dive into this a little bit deeper, but also just to have fun with each other. It's a good time to just have fun and remember to remind ourselves and remember that we can still follow Jesus and have a good time and have fun. And while 2020 has not been the most convenient year by any stretch of the imagination, it's not a waste of a year. And God is still working. God still is moving in all of our lives, and He is directly impacting your life and your faith today. So I encourage you to come, be a part of community, be a part of a community, a family of believers where you can walk alongside your peers, all with one goal in mind, and that is to become more like Jesus, to follow Him more closely, and to be able to change your circle of influence by the love that you have for one another. That's all I got for you guys. I hope to see you on Sunday. I love you guys. We'll see you this weekend.